Hi guys, it's Alicia here again. Today is the same day that I filmed my holiday salad recipe, and like I said on that one, I am not feeling the best and I'm looking a hot mess, so I am gonna skip the intro on this one and just go right to what I'm making and the ingredients. So today I'm gonna be making some easy rolls. This is a recipe from my mother-in-law. My husband grew up eating these, and now we make it all the time too. And I have to say, it is probably the best dinner roll recipe I have ever tried. I have tried a few through the years, and I just keep coming back to this one because it's not only super easy, they taste just delicious. They're fluffy, they're soft, they are just absolutely delicious. So since Thanksgiving is in a couple days, I'm going to be making these up and we will have them on Thanksgiving. So anyway, let me get started with what you're gonna need to make these. First, obviously, you're gonna need flour. It ends up being anywhere from about 6.5 to 7 cups. You just kind of have to see how the dough is going. Okay, next is 2 cups of water. And you want this to be warm, preferably about 110 degrees. And then you've got a 1/2 cup of sugar, 1/4 cup of Crisco, 4.5 teaspoons of yeast or 2 packages of yeast, 1 egg, and 2 teaspoons of salt. And that is all there is to this. So the first thing you want to do is take your water, and I'm gonna check it real quick and make sure the temp is still right. And we've got 110 exactly, so that's perfect. Okay, you're going to take your yeast and you're gonna dump that in your water. And then you're gonna just stir it up. And I like to add just a little bit of sugar to it to make sure that it's going to actually work. So I'm going to stir that in. And then you're going to just let this sit for probably about 5 minutes if you want to proof it and make sure that the yeast is working. So in about 5 minutes, if the yeast is active and working, this will start to kind of froth up. So I'm going to go ahead and let that sit until I see it start to get frothy. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes, and as you can see, this has started to froth up. So I know the yeast is good, so I'm going to go ahead and continue. So the first thing you want to do is basically just dump all your ingredients into a bowl. Or if you have a mixer that has the bread kneading paddle on it, you can do that. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna pour my yeast and water in. And then my sugar, my Crisco, my egg, and my salt. So now that I've got my bread kneading hook on there, I'm going to just give it a little stir. And that's not gonna mix it a whole lot just because it's a bread hook and not a mixing paddle. But I like to give it a little stir anyway before I start adding my flour. So now that I've done that, I'm gonna start adding my flour, and I'm gonna just add it like a couple cups at a time. So we'll start out with 2 and stir it. Now I'm gonna add another 2 to it and turn it back on. Okay, now I'm going to add 2 more cups to make it 6. and then I'm gonna let it knead for a while and see what the dough is looking like at 6 cups. Okay, and that's what it's looking like after about a minute of being mixed. It's still a little bit moist, so I'm gonna add another half cup, and then I'm gonna just let it knead for probably about 5 minutes. And during that, you'll probably have to stop it occasionally and pull the dough down the hook, because it likes to kind of work its way up the hook, and then it's not getting kneaded anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead, add an extra half cup, let this knead for 5 minutes, and I will come back. So I wanted to show you what I was talking about when I said that it'll climb its way up the hook. That's what it's doing right here. So I just pull the dough back down. And then restart it again. Okay, this has been going about 5 minutes, and it's not super sticky to the touch, so I think we got enough flour in there. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go get a medium-sized bowl, and I'm gonna grease it with Crisco, and then I will be back. Okay, I've got my dough here, and now I'm gonna just take it out of the bowl, and I'm gonna kind of form it into a ball, and then I'm gonna place it into my greased bowl here. So here's my dough, and this is pretty much what you want it to look like. It might be a little bit on the sticky side, but I would rather have it more that way than too dry. So I'm gonna just take this and, like I said, form it, kind of like fold it in on itself like this until I have a nice little ball shape. And then I'm gonna just place it in this greased bowl. And the reason you want to grease this is because you don't want the dough to get stuck to your bowl. So I'm gonna set this in here and kind of just move it around. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of Crisco on the top, and kind of the sides here too. Just again to prevent from the dough sticking when it starts to rise. And I'm gonna have saran wrap on the top of this bowl, and I don't want it to stick to the saran wrap either. So just grease it up nicely, and it definitely should not stick. So put some saran wrap on it. Kind of lightly over. You don't want it getting dried out in there. And then I'm gonna just put this in the fridge and let it rise in the fridge. I'm not sure exactly how long that'll take, probably a couple hours or so. What I normally do is I put mine in the fridge overnight, and then I make my rolls the following morning. But if you want to make them the same day, if memory serves me correctly, I think this dough will rise in a couple hours in the fridge, and then you can proceed from there. But like I said, I like to just leave mine in overnight and do it the next day. So anyway, I'm gonna put this in the fridge, and I will be back tomorrow to show you the rest of the steps. Okay guys, it is the next morning, and I've got my dough here out of the refrigerator, and as you can see, it has risen quite a bit. And I did check this to see how long it takes to rise in the fridge, and it did only take about a couple hours to get to pretty much this size. So if you want to bake them the same day as you're making the dough, it takes about 2 hours for the first rise. Okay, so from here, what you want to do, you want to take your dough and take it out of the bowl. Now what I would normally do with this is I would break it into two And if you have a dough knife, all the better. I do not, so I just kind of tear it in half. Form 2 balls. Make sure they're pretty much the same size. Okay, now I'm going to take these 2 balls and I'm going to cut them in half, and I'm just going to use a knife because again I don't have a bread cutter. Okay, now normally I would make these rolls all the same way, but my mother-in-law's way of doing it is more of a decorative way, and I don't always do it that way. Sometimes I want just the classic dinner roll shape because I like to use these rolls for like mini sandwiches a lot of times. So I'm going to do this 2 different ways, the way my mother-in-law does it and then the way that I do it a lot of time, just so you can see the two different ways that you can form the dough. The reason I cut the dough is because this makes roughly 24 rolls, and I like to cut it in 4s so that it's easier to work with each little quadrant and turn that into 6. First, I'm going to show you the way that my mother-in-law does it. And so what you're going to need for that is a greased muffin tin. And since I'm only doing half the recipe her way, I'm only going to need 1 of these. Otherwise, you would need 2. Okay, so I'm going to take my first quadrant here and I'm going to pinch a little bit of dough off. And I'm just going to form it into a little ball and place the tucked in side on the bottom. And then I'm going to do that 2 more times until I have 3 little balls down in the muffin tin. So here's the second one, and again, tucked side down. Just kind of squish it in next to the first one there. And 1 more. And just put that right next to the other 2. So that's what that is going to look like. And you're going to just continue this process until you fill the rest of the tin. And that is what it looks like when you get all 12 of them done. And now I'm going to show you how to make them in a more classic dinner roll way. So what you're going to need for these is a 9x13 pan, and you want to grease this. And I don't remember if I said on the last one you want to grease your muffin tins too. That's just so they won't stick and they'll come out of the pan easy. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these. I'm going to kind of roll it okay, and now once I get it like that, I'm going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to cut each one of these into 3rds. Okay, now you're just going to take each one of these and you're just going to kind of fold it in on itself a few times until you get a nice little ball shape like that. Okay, and then you're going to take this and you're going to just put it in your pan, and then you're going to do the same thing. And what you want to do is have 3 in a row. There will be 12 in here total. So 4 rows of 3 is what you're aiming for. And some of these might end up being a little bit bigger or smaller. They're not all going to be exactly the same size, but that's okay. And again, you want to make sure the tuck end is on the bottom so that it looks pretty. So you're just going to continue this process until you get all 12 of them done. And I'm going to do that and then I will be back. Okay, and that's what those look like when they're done. So now that I've got both of these in the pans, I need to do the second rise on them before I can bake them. So there they are. I'm going to close the oven door and I will see how long it takes them to rise. You want them to kind of not quite double, but maybe get half as big again as they are right now. So I will be back when they have risen and they're ready to bake. Okay guys, it's been just about 2 hours and these have risen up. And so now what I'm gonna do is preheat my oven to 400 degrees. And when that's preheated, I am going to cook these starting for about 10 minutes. So I will come back when these are done and show you what they look like. Okay, so my ones here are looking done, so I'm gonna pull them out first before the other ones. And that is what they look like. I'm gonna let the other ones just cook another minute or so. And so now what you wanna do is you wanna brush some butter on these. Okay, and then you just want to let them sit for a little bit and then they are ready to eat. And I will come back and show you the other ones when they're out of the oven. Okay, I just pulled these out and now I'm buttering them, and they took a couple minutes longer to brown up than these ones here for some reason. Anyway, I get these all nice and buttered, and then I will show you what these guys look like on the inside, because they've cooled just a little bit. They've cooled enough for my husband to already eat one of them. So he's gonna take another one and he's gonna tear it apart. So you can see how nice and soft these are. And the nice thing about these ones here are not only are they a little bit prettier than these guys, the fact that you can pull them apart like that is kind of cool. So anyway, that is all there is to making these delicious rolls. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.